This is a Scottish fairy tale. It's the Smithy and the Fairies. A long time ago, wait, is it right?
I'm sorry, you're not showing up on your screen.
Oh, the lens cap's on.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
I'll begin again.
Okay.
This is the Smithy and the Fairies, and here it is. A long time ago in the Trossachs, near the bonny banks of Loch Lomond, in the town of Ley, lived a smithy and his young teenage son. He was about 13, 14 years. And he lived at his forge, and he would forge away, making a meager salary. He was simple and poor. And one day he was hoping that his son would help him. But as he worked at his forge, building for the king's army, his son got sick. His face turned as yellow as the sun. And he went to bed and he laid down. And he would just lay there and mope about. He wouldn't say a word when his father would go, "Son, laddie, how are you feeling? Why are you sick?" The son would just shrug his shoulders. Fraught with wonderment and beside himself, the dad went into town, into Ley, and he sought out the sage seeker. And the sage seeker was an old wise man. And the old wise man said to the smithy, "I think you have a snockin in your house, and this is what you must do. When you go back, build a fire, a hearth, around your son, and gather up all the broken eggshells that you can find and fill them up with water." So thinking about this, the smithy went back to his house, went to his son, and he went, "I don't think we need to build this fire." But he did gather all of the cracked eggshells, and he gathered them around, and 2 by 2 he filled them with water, and walked, and put them on the cabinet. And mighty be, the son woke up and said, "I'm 800 years old, and I've never seen something like that." And that shocked the smithy. And he didn't know how to get rid of this demon. So he went back to the sage slayer, and that he asked him, "How do I get rid of this monster?" And the sage slayer, "Silly, you forgot to build your fire and hearth." And have him jump in and dance about, silly and all. And so the smithy went back to the house and built the fire, and off the demon goes and jumps around and he leaves. But his son is not there. So he goes back to Ley and he says, "How do I get my son back?" And the sage slayer says, "Well, we don't learn about this anymore. But off in the cairns in the distance, the green hills, the fairy folk, or the Sockins, live. And you must go there, and you must take 2 items, and I think that's where they're keeping your son. You must take your prized dirk and a wee cock." And the smithy said, "Okay, sage slayer." And he went back to his forge, and he gathered up his dirk, got his cock, put his hunting vest on, and went out for a hike to find his son. And following what the sage slayer said, once you find the cairn, take out your dirk and plunge it in. So as he's walking, he's remembering. what do I do next? And he finally gets to the cairns in the distance. And he plunges the dirk in. And a hole opens up in the cairn. And the wee fairy folk are dancing about in a gay manner. And they're going, and they're dancing. And the smithy, he gets all caught up in it. But in the distance in this wee apartment, there's a forge, and his son is working the forge. Eventually, the fairy folk recognize that a human is among them. And they ask, why be here in our home? And he said, you stole my son. I want him back. And at that point, with the loud voice he had, the cock woke up on his shoulder and went, caw-caw, caw-caw, caw-caw. And the fairy said, get out of here, you're just a nuisance. And they went back home. And for a long time, the son didn't say a word. And one day, while his father was working the forge, he said, duh, you're doing it wrong. Let me show you. So the son gets up, and he goes over to the forge, and he's working along. And out comes a sword. And it was the finest sword in the land. And he said, see, Father, this is what the wee fairy folk taught me how to do. They taught me how to smelt metal and forge it into grand weapons, and we can take it to the king, and he'll hire us. And so the father took it to the king, showed him the weapon, and to this day, the father and the son are happily employed making weapons for the king's army.